Cheers, folks! Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Blade. Today, we'll watch some lucky lodgers and arborists and their near-death experiences. Each story teaches us only one lesson: safety and precaution first. Without further ado, let's dive in. Well, this guy is clinging onto the tree in a very awkward and a dangerous position. But what happened next was even more bizarre and terrifying. You see, although he was cutting the upward branch, unfortunately, the tree began to fall down about its trunk. Luckily, fate was on his side, as he wasn't wearing any protective gear, yet he wasn't injured that much. Next up is this guy trying to cut off the dead branches from the tree. Well, it seems like he knows what he's doing. Although the tree fell on the cottage, luckily no damage was done. Speaking of luck, the way this guy dodged a fatal injury will shock you. This guy's a trained individual, properly suited to do the task. But tree felling is brutal. The way the tree was shaking with the guy still on it was a terrifying view. If you think this was unbearable to watch, then the next one will blow your soul away. You can see that he's a trained individual, laced with complete safety gears and head protection. But the end was horrible. You see, that's the reason why you should always care about your protection first. But the next guy lacked it. You see how small the trunk is he's shaking? That's way above his height, tiptoeing. To be honest, the guy looks helpless to me. Luckily, the tree trunk rested against the house wall, making it easier for the man. But his fate had other plans. Well, I wonder what would have happened if it was a bigger project. Next up is this guy trying to fell this tree. However, these trees are strongly intertwined with each other, so that it's impossible to do the job without cutting all three. To get rid of the problem, he had to chop off all three of these. Unlike the previous one, he looks like a smart guy. But what happened next will shock you. The tree branch knocked him off. Luckily, no damage was done. However, the next one seems like he knows what he's doing. Look how carefully he's doing everything, every step calculated. And even the trunk fell on the cabin, yet no harm was done. A perfect example of how to do a job well done. Well, this guy is giving me panic attacks. You know what a chainsaw, tree felling, and a ladder form combined together? A disaster. I hope this guy is doing well though. That guy in red on the tree is already giving me adrenaline. The way he's standing and felling the tree is worrying me already. Luckily, no one was hurt. On the contrary, this guy looks in control. He knows exactly what he's doing. Although an addition of protection gears would be great, right? Well, that's too bad. Not exactly the mission failed, but a little damage. Here's another one with a ladder. I hope this doesn't go like the previous one. Well, so far things are looking great for him, but what happens next will give you a chill down your spine. Ouch, that was too painful. I wonder if the guy survived. Well, that's not a big log to pull, right? But sometimes small things cause big damages. Well, luckily, this isn't that time. Just a little damage and that's a job well done. Well, that's a huge tree. Just look at this trunk. But the technique this guy's using is just simply amazing. And that's what we call they know what they're doing, right? Next up is felling a dried up tree. These people are working together to destroy this burned tree. Luckily, the job was done well and nobody got hurt. Here's another one in the same scenario. Guy, ladder, and a chainsaw. But as the guy worked on this tree, a terrifying fate awaited him. Can you believe it? Falling from such a great height. This does look way more than 6 feet. What do you think? Speaking of which, this looks like another Project Lumber flop. Just look at this guy casually standing on the ladder with no safety gears. Wait for the nightmare. And that's exactly why you shouldn't trim a tree on a 24-foot ladder without protection. Well, this guy has placed his ladder on the soft floor. And yes, you guessed it right, something dark is about to happen. Imagine what else could have happened. Creepy. Next up is another close call. These guys were trying to fell this tree. After sawing it, they began to pull it with the help of a rope. But suddenly, things got a little out of hand. Phew, that was a close one. But this one will crack you up. Well, these two guys sawing simultaneously might look impressive, until both saws got stuck. Well, that happens. The next arborist looked more intelligent. He was on his mission chop chop, but he was ready for what was about to come. Barktastic, right? Well, the next one has climbed on the top of a burned tree to get rid of it. The height is giving creeps, but despite such a height in place, he looks totally in control of the situation. And how beautifully he completes the job he was assigned. This lad is trying to get rid of a huge tree, but you know what he's missing? His protective gears. Luckily, no damage was done. Well, beside the tree falling off. Speaking of falling, the next one on the list will make you wonder how someone could be so irresponsible. The man was on the ladder, leaning against the very same bark he was chopping off. Guess what? You were meant to fall. Hopefully it'll be a lesson learned for next time. The way he stood up and left seems like he must be doing well. If you think that was bad, then the next one will shock you. This arborist was cutting the bark, but what happened next was rather shocking. Did you see that? Scary. I almost had a mini heart attack. Did you ever face any near-death experiences while tree felling? Let us know in the comments. Next up is another experience of ladder. This guy was cutting the tree while the bark hit his ladder. Luckily, he held onto the tree firmly and no damage was done. This boy is climbing up the tree to cut some leaves from it. Although the boy is climbing quite professionally, you can't deny the fact that the boy is at an extreme height with no protection. And that's when the worst happened. Can you imagine? The guy fell down from such a height. Crazy. Luckily, he wasn't hurt much. This guy is cutting off the logs in rather small sizes to do it efficiently. I know, the height is scaring me too. How perfectly well did the log fall on the ground? Well, almost. It was just a small fence, right? This lady is trying to get rid of the tree with the help of an axe. But even after trying for some time, she had to use the chainsaw. The only problem is that she wasn't ready for something like this to happen. Luckily, it was a small tree and nothing was damaged. Next up is another close call. This arborist was removing this huge tree. Everything was going well until… The scream was chilling, but fortunately everything went well. Next up is another crazy moment. This guy was perfectly doing his job, but then suddenly something unexpected happened. Well, that was branch-tastrophobic. Moving on to the next one. This guy was chopping off this huge tree off his property, but, well, his calculations weren't so smart. Well, the next guy wasn't so lucky. So the guy had climbed up the tree to cut it, but the results were rather shocking. Luckily, the next one on our list is rather barkilient. See how nicely it is done? Well, this is a huge one. The arborists are trying to remove this huge trunk off the tree. That was simply barktastic. How beautifully they have performed this task. Well, these guys are trying to remove this huge trunk. All the while, the others are just witnessing. And then this happened. Perfectly done. The next one, not really. Here's another one where some guys are busy with the mission, chopping off. But this time, not successfully done. Well, this one will blow up your mind and you'll watch it again to confirm what you just saw. Looks like a normal tree falling. Well, watch again. Terrifying. This guy is on to rather a tremendously bigger mission, but the end will shock you. He not only completed the task, but also didn't damage any property. Well, that's simply genius. The way this guy is standing is giving me a headache. Just look at it. Wow, that was just insane. He's one lucky person. This guy seems to be in control, but considering the height and position of this guy is freaking me out. He has no safety gears whatsoever. Turned out his chainsaw battery was dead. Bizarre, right? Moving on to another bizarre incident. This guy's trying to remove some tree branches with the help of a crane. But thing is for sure, even if you aren't using a ladder, dangers are still there. Did you see this? The guy in the orange shirt was saved by inches. Speaking of which, here's another one. These guys are working together towards one common goal. But too bad, they should have moved that thing before. Speaking of moving, you wouldn't have thought about broken branches moving people. Check it out. Scary, right? Well, sometimes luck is on your side, just like this guy. Old Grandpa was just moving to the other side when something unfortunate happened. He's one lucky person. The arborist in the last clip was just there to do the job, but the tree decided to rebel against him. That was some rooted rebellion. Poor guy. This one really shook me, but it also reminds us about the life-threatening duties of arborists. If you enjoyed the content and want more, don't forget to slice the subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.